Hello and welcome to Out of the Fog. I'm Karen Hager. Each week at this time, we gather for spiritual conversation with enlightening guests, and I'm glad you're here. You can find out more about my work as an intuitive guide and spiritual teacher at KarenHager.com or on Instagram, where I'm Fog City Psychic. So a lot of you probably know I live in southeastern Michigan, where spring is in full swing. And for me, that means lots and lots and lots of Kleenex. I grew up on the other side of the state in southwestern Michigan, and some of my earliest memories, just as a little kid, are around getting tested for allergies. And it turns out I'm allergic to just about everything that grows around here. They did that test where they number spots on your skin, and then they put allergens on those spots and wait to see which places blossom into itchy bumps. Well, just about every spot blossomed into an itchy bump for me. I had allergy shots when I was a kid that never seemed to do much good. I moved to California and found a bit of relief, but when our family came back to Michigan in 2009, that bumpy, itchy, sniffly cycle began again. So on today's show, we'll be looking at what causes allergies. Is there anything we can do to break that cycle of itching and sneezing and sniffling and complaining, which is a part of allergies too? Chinese herbalist and wellness educator Ellen Goldsmith is here to share how nutrition, herbs, and acupuncture can help to bring some relief. So are you ready to meet her? Ellen Goldsmith is a nationally board certified licensed acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist, an educator, a health and wellness consultant, and she's the author of the book Nutritional Healing with Chinese Medicine, 175 Recipes for Optimal Health. She's the co-founder of Pearl Natural Health in Portland, Oregon. Ellen speaks frequently on the value of understanding food as medicine from a Chinese medicine point of view at conferences and schools, and her consulting and Chinese medicine practice is based in Portland, Oregon. You can find out more about Ellen and all her work at pearlnaturalhealth.com. Ellen, welcome to Out of the Fog.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for that lovely introduction. And oh, I'm so sorry you've been suffering from allergies for such a long time.
And I am a person of maturity, I would just say. I am not a child anymore, a real grown up. So I feel like when we get over the age of 50, we count as real adults. Anything before that, I don't know, you're still learning, right? Once you go over the line, you're a real adult. I'm a real adult, Ellen. I'm wondering I'd love your take on what allergies are. What are they really? Not just, we talk about them like it's a collection of symptoms, but what are allergies?
Well, allergies are a result of the body kind of reacting to a substance that is not inherently harmful, but it's the body's response to dander, to pollen, to grasses, etc. That is recognized almost as an external and outside invader. So the body responds by trying to get it out of the body, and that's through mucus. So that's why you've got that runny nose, those itchy eyes. The fluids actually are trying to bring out this inflammatory substance that the body does not like. The thing here is, though, that why do some people get allergies and some people don't? Right?
Why?
Well, I mean, some of our constitutions are just more inherently sensitive. Our immune system is overactive. That's why sometimes children who have allergies can grow out of those allergies as they get older, because the immune system starts to calm down. I'm saying, like, that's over the over 50, the adult phase, as you described it, right? Yeah, so that's one big thing here. But from a Chinese medicine perspective, we look at the internal terrain of a body. What's going on inside that is making the body so reactive to a non-dangerous substance such as grass, right? And so our immune systems can take in so much. Just inherently in the modern world, we are assaulted with over 83,000 toxic chemicals per week. So we're processing a lot of stuff. The foods that we eat, if we're not eating mostly organic or transitional foods that are not used with pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides, those also have an impact on our immune system. Our immune system has to mitigate, has to negotiate with these things. So from our perspective, it's what we eat, and it's how we digest and transform and absorb substances. So my approach is start with food. And go ahead.
I'm just sorry, I'm getting excited because maybe I won't have allergies anymore. So you're talking about food that puts less stress on the immune system, or is it food that calms that reactivity?
Very good, Karen. A little bit of both. You could put foods into two categories just to simplify things. You have inflammatory foods, which is a pretty standard American way of eating. Hamburgers, French fries, hot dogs, processed foods, potato chips, white bread, these kinds of foods that create an inflammatory response in the body, or foods that are anti-inflammatory. And these are the foods you find on the periphery of your supermarket. They're called fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts and seeds, well-raised animal foods, whether it be meat or fish, organic eggs. Some, and there are some that are bigger triggers than other. Like, I'm not putting dairy into the category of whole foods because a lot of people have sensitivity to dairy. They may not be outright allergic to it, where they get hives or any kind of anaphylactic kind of response to it, where the body really shuts down and it's a dangerous state. But if you eat a food and you start blowing your nose, or you start feeling congested, or you have more mucus in your throat and you're starting to clear your throat a lot, or your stomach doesn't really quite feel right, or you get bloated, you might be sensitive to those foods. And that's a type of allergen or an irritant in the body that can cause inflammation. And all disease has an inflammatory aspect to it. So we want to replace those inflammatory foods with anti-inflammatory foods. We want to see what foods perhaps are the triggers for your allergies. Like my husband, he would get allergies in the summer. And if he ate a lot of fruit, now fruit is a wonderful thing to eat, but if he ate a lot of fruit, he would start blowing his nose, his eyes would itch, he'd have tons of mucus. So that's really interesting. For me, when I was a kid, I was super allergic. I had hay fever. I lived in New York. I had hay fever. I was allergic to cats. We had cats. It was a mess. And then in my 20s, I gave up dairy and my allergies went away. So, we have to look at it. Chinese medicine is a very personalized medicine. So we look at every individual and we're like detectives trying to figure out what is the key to improve someone's condition.
So I think of Chinese medicine as looking at not just the physicality of the person, the structure of the person, but also at the way that energy flows in the body. And as you're talking to me about allergies and that inflammatory response and the way the fluid comes in to try to bring this stuff out of the body as we try to process it, I'm wondering what's happening energetically when we are in the throes of, I guess, an allergy attack. How does that change the energy that we're running?
Well, like you said in your introduction, people complain a lot. People aren't happy. The energy is all messed up in the body because, there's not a sense of flow. You can't perform your daily activities. You can't think straight. Sometimes with allergies, people get foggy in their head and they just don't want to deal with the day-to-day of life, let alone things that, dreams and things that you're trying to make happen. So Chinese medicine is very esoteric and it's very deep and it has a very deep spiritual component to it. And it's also very practical. We know when we feel good, and that's when our energy is flowing. That's when we have a sense of flow and ease. And when there is not ease in the body and not flow, it's very hard to function. So I'm kind of taking what your question and I'm just bringing a little practical bent to it, because I think we all want to be able to function and feel at ease in our own bodies.
And so we can do that by lightening the load,
We can.
the foods and substances that trigger us. And it sounds like there might be energetic shifts available as well, whether we do that through acupuncture, we do that through mindset. Am I understanding you?
Yes, I mean, I've treated thousands of people, and I treat people with acupuncture, herbs, and food. And acupuncture, the ultimate goal of acupuncture is that there's a balance of what we call in Chinese medicine yin and yang, and the flow of qi, the ease in the body. The body can't heal unless is a sense of ease and relaxation. So acupuncture can relieve inflammatory responses. It can take the stress off of a system. And, when you don't feel well, it's like, you kind of, what is it, the chicken or the egg? What came first? When you don't feel well, there's an added stress. And then that stress has an ill effect on the immune system, which then makes you feel, that the immune system gets more or overactive, or your disease gets worse. So all things are treated from a baseline of how can we promote the easy flow of what we call qi in blood, or yin and yang in the body, so that a person can feel at ease and the body can reset itself, because inherently it's about the body's capacity to heal itself. It may not be cure, but it may be healing. They're two different things.
Do you believe that each one of us individually has an individual point at which we are balanced and in optimal health? Or are we always kind of reaching for that and adjusting?
Well, health is a dynamic place. It is not a static place. So it is a constant readjustment. But, our bodies are brilliant, and we have the capacity to readjust constantly. But if you can readjust, if you look at it like a seesaw, and, so you're not sitting at the ends of the seesaw kind of having to readjust using a lot of energy and force, you're more closer to the fulcrum. So that natural readjustment it doesn't require so much energy. That's why you want to eat food that is anti-inflammatory, because it's closer to the center of the fulcrum. It's easier for the body to take it in. It's easier for the body to digest and transform, and then ultimately absorb nourishment, and then ultimately circulate that nourishment through our bodies, so that our brains are nourished, our heart is nourished. We say in Chinese medicine, if you have good digestion, if your qi is good, then your mind and your spirit are clear. But if your body is not well, it's really hard to feel clear in your mind and your heart and your spirit. Right? So,
yes, that's true.
Yeah. So there's a lot of practical things that can get you to that place that you want to get to. And the way I think about food is again, that anti-inflammatory aspect, but also there are certain foods, there are certain herbs, etc., that can be beneficial when you're suffering from allergies.
You're listening to Out of the Fog, and I'm talking with Ellen Goldsmith. She's the author of Nutritional Healing with Chinese Medicine, and you can find out more about Ellen and her work at pearlnaturalhealth.com. So, Ellen, what are some of those specific herbs and food that we might be able to start to bring into our diet? Sometimes when we talk about allergies, people then imagine the elimination diet, where right, they take everything away and you get like a grain of sand and you sit with the grain, and then you can add in 2 grains of sand and then an apple, right? What are some of the things we could gradually begin to take in that may help reverse that cycle of allergy?
That's a great question. And it's like kind of compare it to a closet here. If you're buying a whole new wardrobe and you have all these old clothes in your closet, you better take some of those old clothes out so you can bring the new things in, and you can find them, right?
Yes.
And enjoy them. So it's like, you don't want to add medicinal herbs on top of a lousy diet. that keeps that kind of underlying, inflammation going. So first, you always have to remove those obstacles to cure. And you don't have to be reduced to a grain of sand. I mean, I love food and I eat an anti-inflammatory diet, and I do not feel deprived. I feel enriched. I feel nourished. I love to eat. So, but you do want to take those things out. And, sometimes the simplest things, like if you could change your allergies with food, you go, wow, that was simple. It can be the hardest thing because you're changing your food,
Yeah.
you're changing your habits, you're changing your preferences, you're changing, your teaching and your cultural upbringing. Well, you don't have to change your cultural upbringing, but because every culture has anti-inflammatory foods and delicious things to eat. But, it's a big thing to change our habits. So you have to first have mercy on yourself. And I always like to say, just pick one or two things and start to see. Again, like I said, dairy is a big trigger for people. Wheat is a huge trigger for people. Sugar is a huge trigger for people. Alcohol is a huge trigger for people. And then you get into other things like it can be chocolate, it can be citrus fruit foods, it can be a lot of different things, but those big ones are, wheat, dairy, sugar, alcohol. Those are really the big ones for people. So if you can kind of see what thing you're eating the most of and try to pull that out. And then add in dark leafy greens, which have lots of minerals, are detoxifying, cleansing. They help our gut. They help our elimination. In my book, I have a whole bunch of recipes that can be super helpful for allergies. Nettles, which grow in early spring, stinging nettles. If you want to pick them, you've got to wear gloves. And you can find them a lot in fields all over temperate climates. But you can buy nettles, you can buy dried nettles in tea bags, you can get them in bulk in an herb store. And nettles are a natural antihistamine. They are a blood cleanser, they're good for the liver. And so people can drink a cup of nettles tea every day and or a couple of times a day, and that can help with easing of allergies. I have a recipe in my book where I use dried spring nettles with chrysanthemum, Chinese chrysanthemum, which again, you can get like in an herb store. Sometimes you can find them in Asian grocery stores, chrysanthemum tea. Chrysanthemum is, again, it's an herb that helps to clear heat. It's good for the eyes. It soothes inflammation. It's good for the liver. And then I add in some rosebuds, which are also very soothing. They're nervine, and it's a lovely, that kind of, you get that fragrance, you get that kind of floral thing, but the herbs that are being used are really good for allergies and calming them down. Eating spring greens are really good for allergies, like asparagus is very good. It helps to clear heat. Whenever you have inflammation, you have heat. You may not have a fever, but it's a kind of irritated, hot kind of condition that we have. Artichokes are very good. We use artichoke in Western herbal medicine. We'll take an artichoke extract, silymarin, very good again for the liver, for cleansing, for allergies. But all spring greens are great. So I just say, if you can get spring dark leafy greens into your diet every day, like twice a day, you're doing great. These are just some simple things that you can do. Or if you go to your acupuncturist or your naturopathic physician or your holistic medical doctor, they might prescribe an herbal formula that can also be quite beneficial, or quercetin, which is very good it's a bioflavonoid it has an antihistamine effect as well.
So there's lots of things that we can do that don't sound difficult. Because I was waiting for the part where you said only have stinging nettles, no other food for 30 days, and then add in chrysanthemum. What I'm hearing you say is that this is like looking at a well-rounded diet that's compassionate to the system, and that's tailored to what the individual person responds to. Right? Those lovely anti-inflammatory fruits you were sharing are difficult for your husband. I know my sister, when she eats cherries, there was a horrible incident in our childhood. We're probably over it. My mom had asked us to have a picture taken, me and my sister. We had an appointment with a photographer. This was in the old days. You actually went to see the photographer at the photographer's studio. My sister and I stayed up late at night eating ice cream with cherries on it. When we woke up in the morning, my sister's eye had swollen shut.
Yeah.
Creating anger, right? So sometimes fruit can make you miss your appointment with the photographer, and mess up your whole family dynamic. But you're talking about things that are compassionate to the system. My sister knows now that while cherries are wonderful, they're not wonderful for her. So there's a self-knowledge thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that way. When I work with people, with clients, whether virtually or in person, it's really about increasing your capacity, cultivating your capacity to connect to your own body, to listen to your body, to understand its needs, and to have tools so that you can nourish it. And recognizing everybody's different. Like you said, your sister, cherries are great. Now, cherries are not a huge allergen, but for your sister, they are.
Yes, they are.
So we have to face reality. You know what I'm saying? Our own reality. Like, that may be fine for somebody else, but it may not be right for us. Or something that we could eat a long time ago and we were good with, we may not be good with now. And that's maybe sad. We have to grieve and our loss of that, that joy. But there's plenty out there that we can do and enjoy that can benefit us. So, Chinese medicine is very personalized medicine. We say there's one disease, 10,000 cures, because everyone is different. So we have to approach everybody different. And we do that through a whole trove of skills and things that we've learned of diagnosis to kind of understand what the balance of what we say, again, yin and yang, qi and blood is. And again, I can't explain that to everybody right now in full force, but it is a different language, but it has similar results. It can dovetail. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can still see your allergist if you have really severe allergies and see an acupuncturist and get acupuncture and herbs so that maybe the reduction of your medication can happen as you change the way you eat, as you change your system. Your body's constantly changing.
I was going to ask you what you thought of pharmaceutical tools. It sounds like you're okay with them.
A doctor once told me years ago, he said, everyone has a different tolerance. Some people cannot tolerate a discomfort. And so, or they're afraid. And so they feel comfortable with medication. The goal is always you want to reduce the amount of medication that you might need, so to speak. Like if you're taking Claritin every day, that's not the most ideal thing. So what if you could change your diet and your symptoms could be reduced? What if you could take a substance like a bioflavonoid, which comes from the leaves of berry plants, and your symptoms could be reduced? Wow, wouldn't that be lovely? And then in a really bad case, let's say you really have a bad allergy, you take a Zyrtec or a Claritin once in a while. That's okay. There are some cases where, medication might be really called for in a serious case. Your life is in danger. If you have an allergy to shellfish, you definitely want to have an EpiPen with you. Right. So my approach is like we have to live in a world that has a lot of dimensions to it. And so we have to see, can we kind of steward our own bodies in a way that we're the healthiest we can be? And then if we need something, a pharmaceutical, maybe we don't need as much, right?
Yeah. This is coming across very compassionate and measured and intuitive, just as I listen to you, because it's about that, not just the individuality, but also our ability to feel into how what worked for us once might not work now, right? So we're feeling into the body's ability to change. And I'm just putting that together with that idea that I hold about allergies as being reactive. And what you're talking about here is the opposite of reactive, right? It's responsive. It responds to what works well for the body. It responds to what works well with the flow of energy in the body.
Right.
So I'm digging this.
Yeah. Yeah, but Karen, our culture, we don't really learn about listening to our bodies, to our feelings, that's not a skill we're taught when we're
Yeah.
young, unless we have, parents or caregivers or wonderful educators or teachers that help us. It's not something we're born with. It's something we learn. And so it's a skill, just like cooking is not a skill we're born with. We learn how to cook, and it's a doable skill. In my book, I really break it down. Like, when you're in that kitchen, there are certain things you can do to help yourself learn how to cook and enjoy it. I mean, we're all experts in eating, right? So, and most people like to enjoy their food. So, wow, cooking is a great way to get the kind of food you like to eat, right?
Absolutely.
And we grow and we change and we learn, and our needs change as we develop. I mean, what the foods you need in your 20s is not the foods that you'll necessarily need in your 60s. Our needs change. So if we can learn how to listen and adjust, I think we have a better chance of better health. And that's why in my book, I broke down all the recipes into seasons, because that's a really nice, simple way to learn how to care for yourself and how to nourish yourself and being in tune with your external environment, called a season.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So how can listeners pick up the book, connect with you, find out more about what you're doing?
Well, you can always find me, like you said earlier, on my website, pearlnaturalhealth.com, and on Instagram at Goldsmith Ellen, Facebook at Nutritional Healing with Chinese Medicine. My book, Nutritional Healing with Chinese Medicine, is in a lot of bookstores. It's, of course, on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org. You can always get it through. I love to support independent bookstores. So
Yeah.
if you can get a book through an independent bookstore, that's a great way. And so on my website, you can contact me. There's a contact page, and I see people virtually and do consults around food, and I speak with organizations. So I love to hear from people. The book has 175 recipes for every type of eater, whether you're a vegan or a meat eater or a fish eater. There are recipes with common herbs, with Chinese herbs, and I really hope that people get to make those changes that makes them feel better.
Thank you so much for talking with us, Ellen. This has really been fun. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
I've been talking with Ellen Goldsmith. She's the author of Nutritional Healing with Chinese Medicine, and you can find out more at pearlnaturalhealth.com. And of course, you are always welcome at KarenHager.com. That's a great place to catch up with the podcast, find out about upcoming classes and events. You can even book a private session with me there if that feels aligned. And if you join the fun on Instagram, you'll get more out of the fog content, jigsaw puzzle photos, and the occasional photo of Maisie the dog. I had been hoping that Maisie would turn out to be kind of like an internet bon vivant, but honestly, her true nature is more about napping and sniffing things, and I'm cool with that. So you won't see pictures of Maisie like dressed up in costumes or anything. It's mostly pictures of Maisie napping, and that's good enough for me. So on Instagram, I'm Fog City Psychic if you want to see my sleeping dog or the jigsaw puzzles I'm working on. And thank you for listening today. Together, we are spreading a little more light in the world, and a little more light is always a good thing. Until next time, I'm wishing you peace.